What's up? How's it going, folks? This is Leo from the Aincrad Tech YouTube channel, and welcome in the new CSS tutorial video. You can find the #1 tutorial video of the series, let's call it that, on the channel. It's about HTML, so I think it's fundamental for this next video because it's basically the build piece of the web, as we call it, and there we describe basically all the tags and everything. That's basically the main knowledge about HTML, so I would recommend checking that out before going in this very new tutorial. But yeah, let's dive into it. So CSS, if you watch the other video, what we go through this VW3 Schools YouTube website channel, and basically what they do, they showcase different technologies, starting from the very basics and the description, all the way down to some of the most basic implementation. So it's really fun. You can see it's a lot of content, and basically I love to follow these guys as main guideline for most likely every technical video argument that we're gonna face. So yeah, CSS. What is CSS? Well, CSS is a standard cascading style sheet, as the acronym of by the way, exactly, cascading style sheets. And basically what it aims to do, it's actually providing styling to the web. So colors, font family, sizes, layouts, and all of that is most likely everything gets done with CSS or some derivative technology. So it's basically a building piece of the web, of whatever you see online, and it's very important. It's the second thing that often gets talked about after you get introduced to HTML. So as it says here, CSS indeed saves a lot of work. You control the layout multiple web pages. You can also add CSS directly into your HTML. Sometimes it happens to be in external style sheets, but generically the goal of CSS is to add a new language, basically, new language to add styling to web pages. Doing so in the most straightforward and basically simple way as possible. Many don't like that much style sheet. Before CSS, the styling was done through, for example, in Java, it gets still done in a programmatic way. So one instruction after the other, and one instruction basically gives a line of style. CSS is very similar to that in one way, to the fact that you will see the example. It's basically one line of style after the other, but the main thing is that it works with assignments. So it works in a simple format. The format is basically selector, then curly braces, and then the attributes of the style. The attributes of styles work still, again, very, very easily with the attribute name and attribute value. So in this example, you can see the selector is just body. This selects the body tag of an HTML page, and the value that gets assigned is just one attribute, one CSS attribute that is called background color and has the value light blue. So it's pretty straightforward to read. Once you are able to read one attribute, you're most likely able to read through it. But starting from the CSS, things can start to get a little complicated from the very beginning. So from the selector as well. So these selectors, as if you guys already watched the past video on HTML, know, are selecting the name of the tag. So P, it's a tag in HTML, as well as H1, as well as body. Those are all tags that can be assigned a style, and this is what is happening in this simple CSS file. For the attribute, and this was basically the main intro to CSS. But diving a little bit deep, what we would discover going forward is that basically, yeah, as I was mentioning, we have the selector, we have the declaration, and we have the whole declaration between curly brackets, and the declaration can include the property and value. So a set of property and value. So you can see in this case you have two, but you can have many more, or you can have just one. So that's the basic structure of it. And let's dive into the code. Right, I think we have enough material to start a little bit of an example. So it's fundamental to always have, I would say, an HTML page where to practice. If you use VS Code, you have this kind of nice shortcut, and we can go CSS tutorial. very easily. And in the body we can add simple tags. So we of course want a title, or we say this is a CSS example, and we can have a AP that describes yes, this is a tutorial indeed, right? So we know what we're talking about. So this is a normal page, and basically what happens, the easiest way, you guys always see me do this in my HTML programming videos, but basically you can add directly here a CSS file. You can call it whatever, index.css is kind of a default name, and through a simple command you can actually link. You can see GitHub Copilot is actually helping me here, but you can link with the rel set to style sheet and with the href set to the name of the file, index.css. So here, what you're doing with this simple line of HTML is you're linking your CSS file to the HTML page. Let me guys make it a little bit bigger. I think you can, yeah, you can see a little bit better. Let's go one more level. Yep. Okay. So basically, as you can see here, we have this content on the HTML page, and it's of course in the body. Everything that is not in the body, as I explained in the last video, is not actually visible, but it's just meta tags. So the title of the page would be CSS tutorial, and you can basically modify whatever it's in the body. So we can open up this page, of course, to see how it looks like, but should be very plain. Yeah, not much styling going on. It's just a simple default styling. As I explained, we already have default styling based per tag. As we know, H1 is the main title, so of course you see it in bold, you see it in a font size that is pretty big, and then you see the normal text in a normal font size. Let me do this as well, so that we can view what is going on at the same time. So this is most likely the content of the page. So we take our content here and we put it in here. Yep. Nice. So what are we doing exactly? So the goal here is to showcase a little bit of an example of what we saw in the previous Woodridge School website. So we have this content. We would like to make some styling changes, as you reckon from the website that we saw earlier. What we can do is simply select the tag, and then we can use curly brackets and add our values. One of the simple values that you usually get added is to actually improve a little bit the font family. The font family, I love to use the system one for Mac, and if I refresh now, you will see that the font family is quite better right now. It's a more modern style family. But I will also, for example, like to change the color. So I go color, and I can choose raw color, but for simplicity we can go red. This will be our red title, and yeah, we start to add a little bit of styling. Let's suppose that we like very much to have kind of a dark vibe, so we can target the body, and remember the body is the whole page, and we can set the background color for the whole page. Background color 000 should be black. Yes, exactly. Now our P is no longer visible, so we gotta fix that. How do we go about it? So we go P, we select the P, and we say color white. Yep. Yeah. So we actually style a little bit. Now what I want to do is I also want this font family to be used for every text property, not only H1 but also H2, H3, P. So how do I achieve that? One way is to move every kind of global style I would like to be reused in the body. So body font family maybe doesn't make much sense to you right now, but basically because the body cannot have a font, right? The body, we explained, it's basically the whole body of the page, so it's not text. Why you put a font family there? Because basically what happens is that the bigger tag that contains them all kind of passes down a few CSS attribute to be used by his children. So in HTML, if we refresh here, we see that now all the text is with the new font family. But basically, what happens in HTML is that if you gave style to a parent, so this is what we call a parent tag, and this is what you call children tags. The parent passes down a few attributes, and when it passes down, meaning that children automatically gets used that attribute. Of course, we can override this behavior by telling the specific children, or you can use this different value, but that's basically overriding. And it may be useful. Some cases it may be not useful. So what is cool here is that we can actually add h2, h3, and we know that they're gonna use the same font family. That it's of course very cool for consistency. You will most likely need that a lot of the way. So this is already starting to be a first example. We explored a few tags. We explored a few selectors. Sorry, we explored a few attributes. But let's dive a little bit deeper in the content here. Let me see if I can, bring this to be here. Lovely. So basically, what we can achieve, according to which school is they want to talk about right after CSS selector. So CSS selector, as I've explained to you, is the way we select items to be then styled in the HTML content. Now, there are multiple ways to select those items. You may imagine that you're in a situation where you have two different P's. For example, this one and this one that we say, this is actually green text, right? But the thing is that if you go here, it's of course not green. So how do I make it green without making the whole rest of the things green? Now, I cannot use the body because body will change the color of everything, so that's not my case. I cannot either use the selector B, because if I say color green, they will both become green. So what I can do in this case is I can attribute a class to the HTML tag. So I go class equal green. Doing so, basically I'm adding a property to the HTML tag that it's deeply connected with the CSS in a manner that I need to write a new selector and I need to attribute style. So how do you write a selector for classes? You go dot and then name of the class, and this is what you do. And then you go, of course, color green or whatever property you wanna put this. And if I refresh, it's green without having to turn every P green, and P that won't have this class name won't be green. Now you can see already how useful this is, because basically I can reuse the same class name to achieve same styling without code repetition, which is very, very good, because basically HTML is not a programming language, but sometimes it does follow the same kind of dry principle where you shouldn't repeat the code, and CSS is the same, by the way. So these are not programming languages, but they follow the kind of the same approach of the code, like good quality code standards in different programming languages. So if you come from Java, Python, wherever you come from, those are still valid and should still be used when it comes to HTML and CSS, even because this page is very simple, of course, but you can imagine we have very, very complicated pages on the web. So it's very, very important that you start to understand this concept from the very, very beginning. So we explore a new CSS selector, dot class name. So this is another nice CSS selector. Let me see if I can comment and say CSS selector about classes, and I can go like this. So I can also comment on a CSS. Now, what is another useful selector? So the selector by ID. Now this is a little bit less used. I've been in the software development industry and web development specifically industry for the last 5-6 years, and I've never found myself to use this very, very often, but it's basically the same as saying, look, we have the AP and this text has an ID. So this text has an identification, and how do we assign ID through the ID property? Very, very simple. We can say we can say text. So the text is going to be our ID. Now, how do we select? CSS selector about ID? How do we go about it? So the syntactic sugar to select the ID, it's dash. Dash. I'm not sure this is called dash in English, but whatever this symbol is called in your language. ID name, so text. Yeah. And then we can say color blue, for example. So we should see this text blue. Yeah, there you go. So this is a new selector. Again, it's quite straightforward. It's nothing. It's not a big deal, of course, but this is very, very much less used compared to the previous one. So, in my opinion, this one is very, very used, and this starts to be a selector that you don't see very often in the code. But it's good to know what it does actually. So going back to the selectors, this is it's another one, and what I wanted to show you specifically is what I wanted to show you is how we can target multiple items in only one selector. Now, what does this mean? Like we can mix CSS selectors. How do we go about it? So basically, let's suppose that we have a div that has a class name of test. Yep. But we want every p within this this class name to have the color yellow. Now this seems funky, right? I'm using toSelector, and then I'm attributing style. So you can also put as many selectors as you want here. So it's a little bit, works a little bit like an array. So you have first element, second element, and so on, and you can go. I don't think there is a specific limit to it, so because you can nest a lot. In HTML that happens quite often, but basically what this does is it says within every class that is called test, the p tags will have this attribute. Now this can be very useful. For example, if I now say, look, I want a whole new section on my website, and I want to call with a class called test, right? Yep. I want to call with a class called test, and I want a p inside it. P, this is a test. If I now go here and refresh, I see this p is actually yellow. But how come? Because I told the previous CSS to make all the p white, but as I specified to you, the rules can be overwritten by more deeply nested rules. So the rules that win is the one that is more nested. In this case, the p is nested within test, and the rule gets attributed to the test div, therefore being more nested and therefore winning and overriding the normal test. If we don't put anything in here, we'll say it will take the white color because it's the rule that goes above him. So yeah, I would say that's pretty interesting, and you can go about it. You can nest as much as you want. Now another nice thing, I don't want to target attributes yet, but CSS can also be, of course, CSS selector for not for multiple, but it's not a mix, but it's for multiple items. Now this means that sometimes you have the same value for different things. So like in this case, we can go, for example, let's see, H2 and H3, we want the color to be, I don't know, purple. Yeah, mix works. So what does this mean? It means that both H2 and H3 will have this style. Now why is this very useful? Because instead of having to write H2 and then I go color purple and then H3 color purple again, to avoid code duplication, is very important to keep your code dry and not repeat yourself a lot. And this is very useful because it's a nice shortcut syntax, and we can show that if we add in here, we go H2, this is a subtitle, and H3 we can see like h3. This is a subtitle, sorry, but yeah, they are both purple. Very, very nice. Now this is basically how do we go applying style. Now this is very important, and this is all of this is about selector, which is very, very good. And yeah, we have this last selector. As it's very simple, as it says here, it affects every HTML element on the page. Again, this is very, very generic, so whatever it's more specific than this asterisk, I guess, in CSS will be overridden. So if I say text, for example, if I have this and I say text color, I don't know, one color that we still didn't use, I think it's I wouldn't want to use yeah, orange, why not? Yep. So you will see nothing is affected. Like I would say, sorry, if I remove this text align center, of course, nothing is affected. Why nothing is affected? Because all the rules that are attributing style to the following element are more specific than this rule, are more nested, as I would basically say. And of course, everything is styled by some selector in here, and therefore the generic selector, nobody is taking the original rule because it's been overwritten all of these times. But if we put something that is not being overwritten by anybody, which is the layout of the text, it will say it works for everyone. So this is, again, very, very interesting selector. Gets used actually a lot. So yeah, I think we saw the main things. You have other selectors, like about, for example, attributes and stuff, but they are definitely not used. The one that I showed you here are the most used, and are the ones that I would keep in mind whenever I style some page. So let's go to the next to see what's with everything schools actually wants to bring us. Yeah, you have basically the way to add CSS. Now this was most likely very famous in the past, but right now the generic rule of thumb is if you use CSS, please put it in a new file. I would say that there is no downside to this. It just keeps the CSS isolated in its dedicated file. It's easy to reuse, and there is no reason why you should actually put inline CSS like this in this example. So I'm a big fan of dedicated file for CSS. So actually I think we can just skip through this section, and it very, very much works that way. Now comments, we already saw a few examples. It's very easy to comment. You can write multiple line comments this way, very, very easy. And you can actually put comments nearby the attributes to maybe explain what the attribute does. But yeah, I would say that's it. So going down to the specific, how many attributes do we have? So how many of these pairs, attribute, name, value, do we have? Well, a lot. Like, it's just a lot of them. I'm gonna be honest, nobody knows. I would say no developer knows every attribute with the value attached by memory, but of course we know the most used ones, the one that happens to be used a lot. Now coloring is one of those spaces where basically most of the time whatever element we use, it needs to have some kind of color according to the designer choice. So colors as the most simple, straightforward value to us. So the first one is background color. Just very simple. We use it here, sets the background color of whatever element is included. Very, very simple. The border color. Border color actually defines the border color of an element. Now we don't have any example here, but I guess we can go border. We define the border, so we say border should be 1 pix wide, should be solid, and it should be yeah, red. Why not? And it should be red. And it basically create this box according to the layout, the text is taking over the whole page, so the border is taking over the whole page. But this is very, very interesting. 1 pix, of course, we can make it bigger. We can go 3 pix. It would just make the line a little bit thicker. Yeah, in like this. And what else? Now, the border is a very, very nice example. I recommend you guys to go through this page. It's very, very interesting. Now we have RGB colors. This is a very funny website where you can fire away with a value to generate interesting colors, but basically shows you what the RGB does. Is basically a mix of red, blue, and black, I reckon, and or white, which you can basically achieve every color, but it's way more used. The X values are way more used, but basically just to showcase, you can, instead of the X value like this, this is an X value. You can put the RGB value. There is no difference. This is a slightly different color, so expect to see, yeah, a slight different. But yeah, I would say this is pretty much it. You can also have RGBA. A adds basically opacity level, and between 0 and 1, 0 being full transparent and 1 being not transparent at all. And you can play around. This is the first very, like, I would say, usage of modern styling. So you can say that the background color of this H1, it's somewhere along the line of, this is going to look very, very bad. But if we give this background color, then we can say we can put it as an RGBA value. Let me see if I can find something a little bit more. Yep, this is a little bit more interesting as a value, and we can basically yeah, the difference is not noticeable right away because we don't have a valid background to test it, but basically RGBA makes whatever it's underneath the element, whether that's just a simple background color, stick out a little bit more. If we go, let me see, if we go, oh, we have also this nice slider. Sorry, if we go like this, yeah, you can see how it has become more visible as the color goes through the values of opacity. So this is nice level. This is fairly used, honestly. RGBA color are used, but the #1 type of coloring is hexadecimal value, X values. These are the main used ones. So you can basically see that if I bring them over, it will carry over the color, and this color is slightly changed. And it's just a way to be more specific with your colors. Now it shows the main attributes to basically attribute color to an item. Main one is of course background color if you are a container, color if you are an element value, and it's, I would say that's pretty much it for the color. Yes, you had HSL, never seen it, never used it, so I'll just like to skip through it. And yeah. So you have this background color. This background color basically achieve sorry, not background color, but background attributes achieve particular effects when it comes to using images as background. I will say this is pretty much advanced. It will most likely not happen to use this value until you receive a certain point of skills within your CSS. But here we basically show, a different selector with different opacity. With different colors. Oh, by the way, the opacity value is also valid to be used through simple. Let me see if I can find an element where I can showcase that to you. Too simple. Yeah, you can see it became more transparent, because even though it's not an RGBA color, but we added the opacity value ourselves. So very, very easy. yeah, so as I explained to you, we can sometimes use as background images. Now this is going to be very interesting, but just to a quick comparison, we can go to Unsplash. We can bring a nice background website image. Let me see if there is something interesting. Yeah, this looks pretty cool, right? Is this not? Yeah. So let me see. For example, this would be a classic image that gets used a lot as a background. Shout out to David Van Dijk, which is the photographer. Sorry, we can directly use the link. I would also recommend using Unsplash for images. It's very straightforward and easy to use. So we can just go ahead and copy the address of the image. In our body, we can actually set background image to be URL. We can put in the value. Should work. Yep, it did work. Is the same wall, as you can see, and yeah, we just used the image as a background. Now, as I explained, there are a few attributes that you can use, like the no repeat for not repeating the image if that's too low. Background size coverage is also very interesting. It basically shows basically says let's use the whole image. I think it doesn't fit our case very much. We can go like auto is basically the default one, but you can also say background position to be able to achieve something a little bit more interesting. I will go by the way we cover, otherwise it's way too zoomed in. And if we remove the no repeat, we have we have this kind of behavior that goes about fulfilling the whole thing, which I think it's similar to the default behavior. Yeah, perfect. And yeah, so also having an image as a background is fairly easy. With the URL, I also recommend to use remote images. They are way too much easier to use, and you can say like we can also mess around with the position of the background. For example, yeah, right up, why not? If you go right, it basically doesn't change much. Yeah, basically see how it plays out. It's very interesting. And yeah, I would say that's simply through the background. I will skip through the background. The borders, we basically watch them. How do we achieve this kind of rounding? It's something that gets used a lot, so I will just show you the example. To achieve that rounding is the attribute is border radius. For example, we can start with 4px, and you can see how it starts to smooth out the angle. Now if from 4 we go all the way to 12, I think the difference will be noticeable. Yeah, it's very smooth now. And basically that's it. You can have a border just by one side. Instead of going border, you go border bottom or border top or border right or border left. And you can have this different style. These are very rarely used, but it's all the values that it's possible to obtain that. Honestly, these are most likely not used that much. And then you have this whole border values. What's more interesting, I would say, is the whole word of spacing. So for spacing, we got margin, we got padding. I will put in spacing the attributes height and width as well. These are very important. So when it comes to layout, to position of the element, the margin most likely is something that we want to achieve. Now it's not visible here because we use text line center, but if we say text line normal, we say that everything goes all the way to the left, right? Almost to 0. By the way, it's not to 0 because there is default styling applied to my browser Safari that says that every text has some kind of margin. But what we want to do, for example, is we want to say, look, I need way more spacing to the left. So one easy thing to achieve that, instead of putting margin left to every attribute, is go in the container and say padding left to be, for example, 20 pixels. And everything, you see how everything gets basically shifted to the left. It looks a little bit better. Spacing is a little bit better. To achieve this in all the direction, you can just simply use padding. This will put padding top, from bottom, from the right, from left, and this looks even better. More consistency over the board. Then what can we do that's also interesting? Oh, sorry, margin. Yeah, about the margin, you can specifically give a margin to element. For example, H2, H3. Let's remove the opacity, otherwise are most likely not visible. We can say that margin is something along the line of 40 pixels, very detached from one another. And you can see how they got spaced out, not only from top to bottom, but also from left to right. So this margin applies exactly as padding. You can go margin left, margin right, top or bottom, or you can just simply say margin, and you can, yeah, use the margin all around. I would say for the spacing, it's fairly easy. Now, in many situations, you will find yourself struggling between nested classes, value being overridden by default values, and this can like be very like annoying as a thing, but you should just power through and find the best spacing. I would say use padding when you can. When you're talking about containers, if then you can't, and you want to use one-off kind of margin, the margin value is the go-to. And this is simply some example about margin, and there we have a simple example about padding. You can use pixel values, you can use percentage value, you can use rem values that are different sizes. Yeah, height and width, I will also put this is fairly not spacing if you want to be totally precise, but it's more of a sizing values. What does it mean? It means that basically we are able to attribute sizing to an element. Now we see our for example, our H1 as default height and width. The width is of course not decided. Width is basically given by the layout or by the content. But for example, for the 8, we can say I would like the 8 to be 100 pixel, and then our H1 all of a sudden will be very big. This is all the space occupied by the H1. Of course, the text doesn't play. Our raw text still stays very consistent, so you won't see stretched letters, something like that. No reason to have that, by the way. And what you will see is the container of the text actually taking a lot of space. And you can honestly play around with it. You can say text align center, and you can treat a little bit the text as a container. We have text line. I think we have also vertical align center, and we'll come to this kind of layout values later on. This doesn't do much for us since it's not a container. Yeah. So playing around with it kind of leads you to understand a little bit better. We can also limit our width. Yeah, you see how instead the 8 kind of doesn't affect the text, but the width does. The width imposes a limit to the text into which it needs to go all the way. It wraps all the way in. Like if we just get rid, for example, of the border really quickly, and also the background color. Background color border useful, shows the actual profile of the text, but look at this. If I remove everything, it seems just like it's just new line every 2 words, every 1 word it's a new line. This is very nice to play around with, but if you increase, then the new line becomes stretched and goes a little further. So This is also a very interesting position for the text, but you can play around with the height and width value are those sizing value that goes basically for every element. You can give this to a div, you can give this to a text, you can give this to pretty much everything, images, whatever. Everything needs to have a possibility to be restricted in its sizes. This is how stuff plays out. I wanted to show you, given a container, how the values that we explore so far actually affect the content. So basically, to be very schematic and simple, height and width affect the direct size of the content of the container. Sorry, height and width I think affect most likely everything up until the border. So as you saw, we gave an height and a width, and the border kind of follow it. So the border, the height and width work just outside the border. The border is of course given by the border attributes. We saw that we can say 1 pixel solid, we can say 3 pixels, so the border is as thick as we want through the attributes. If we give padding to a container, we're regulating the spacing that plays inside the container. If we give a margin to the container, we're regulating the space that works outside the container. If we say that the width is 100 and we apply a margin, we will have that margin, for example 20 from the left, and then we'll have the 100 pixel, and we will have the 20 from the right, if that's a generic margin. So that is most likely how stuff play out, and how all these attributes, height, width, padding, margin, border, kind of work together to form the element final, I would say, size and position in the page. Outline is pretty much never used. It's not used that much, but it's basically used to attribute a spacing, a border when an element goes in focus. And text formatting instead is quite often used, for example, to achieve higher designer standards. So this, for example, you can see how spaced out letters are here. There is a specific attribute to achieve this. It's called letter spacing, and it is a value that you can regulate with a pixel value. The fonts, of course, we have pretty much a lot of fonts. Some are included in your system, like my MacBook included the system font. I think it's very close to Roboto. And others, sometimes you gotta import, for example, from Google Fonts, but it's very easy to do so through scripting in the HTML content. CSS icon, again, very much not used. Sorry, these are of course imported by a CSS library, that is Phantasm. I'm not sure if it's a CSS library or just a simple JS importing a few values, but yeah, you can through third party you can easily import icons. Go through the links. Guys, of course there is a lot of content, but I wanted to cover the main for this CSS tutorial from 0 to 1, and something I would think it's very relevant. Of course, links list of it is very relevant. I would say it happens sometimes, just the usage of layouts. Here's in CSS advanced, I guess. I think we want to skip through all of this. Maybe for next video. CSS responsive, again, it's way too advanced for this 0 to 1 video. By the way, if you want another video, just make sure to leave a comment, leave a like, sub to the channel if you like this video, and yeah, more content is most likely coming soon. But yeah, I just wanted to show you a little bit of the current standard, just to move just one step down the complexity road. I would like to show you a little bit of the layout that is I think is the most used in the market. Is used a lot with React and new frameworks, but it's called display flex. Basically, of course, we can see there are a lot of display layouts. We have grid, we have flexbox, we have a lot of different things. These are very advanced, but flex is fairly one of the most used, if not the most used at the time of speaking, and it basically by default lays everything down into a row, but we can change that by say flex direction to be column, and then we got exactly what we had before. But we can also use justify content to put stuff in the center of the page vertically, which I don't think it's applied, but the line item center should. Yeah, line item center brings everything to the center of the page. And yeah, this is just a simple way from where we can, let's suppose that you have the requirements to put everything in a row. With the display flex, it's very easy. It's just a removal of an attribute, putting everything in column, and then we have plenty values for the flex layout. But it's lovely. I would say this is the service video on its own, but I wanted just to showcase a few examples how you can lay out a page. And you can, of course, with what I explained so far, you can make a simple layout with display flex using the following attributes. Add a few values, make sure that the colors maybe are on a more, let's say, interesting color palette than this kind of everything has his own color style, and put an image there. You can use a background image. You can try and do the simple stuff. You can use elements from the first video on HTML, so buttons, text inputs, and you can achieve a lot with just these two first initial from 0 to 1 videos about HTML, CSS. So guys, I would say that's it for this first video. Please, again, let me know if you want a kind of a follow-up, you want to switch with for a 0 to 1 video with a new technology, maybe JavaScript or any other related web tech. And please make sure to leave a like, sub if you like the video. More stuff like this coming on the way. And I would say that's so thank you for your time, guys. I'll see you later.